afternoon and welcome to today's Bright Ideas Lunch Hour program. This discussion is sponsored by the Intellectual Property Law section of the New York State Bar Association. Feel free to unmute your audio and enable your cameras if you have a question during the program, or use the chat box to pose a question to the speaker. We encourage you to jump in and engage in the open discussion after the program. At this time, Bill Samuels, our Intellectual Property Law section chair, will introduce our speaker. Bill?
Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're excited to start up our speaker series. Our first speaker is Frank DeBartolo. Yeah,
I have a hard time saying it too.
Bartolomo. I was doing it well before the Frank DeBartolomeo. Being a confident, engaging, and effective technical speaker, which I'm demonstrating I need some help with, is a vital personal and professional asset. With more than 40 years of engineering experience and 30 years of award-winning public speaking experience, Frank provides a critical insight on actionable skills, tips, and tools you need to overcome your fear of public speaking. In addition to his speaking engagements, Frank teaches results-focused master classes, workshops, Q&A sessions, and customized coaching programs to help meet needs and goals. Frank is a retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, and after his 21-year military service career, he worked in defense and intelligence for 24 years. In 2007, Frank started up DCI Consulting, a presentation skills and coaching company. Frank, tell me what I need to work on.
Okay. Okay? You're handing it off, right? I just want to make
Yes.
sure. Okay, great. Well, let me share here. Okay. Oop, you don't want to see Atlantic Union Bank. Okay, let's stop sharing. Let's see. Share. Bear with me a second. Okay, now I think we can share. All right. Can anybody not see the screen? Okay. The way I like to handle this presentation is I like to get questions when you have the question. So whenever you have a question, you can either put it in the chat. Sharman and Bill will be monitoring the chat and will interrupt me, which I want them to do, and so I can answer the question. So we're going to talk about how to create, practice, and deliver outstanding presentations. Let me tell you a little story. I was a 12-year captain, 1990, and I've been in the Air Force for 12 years. And I decided to find out what this Toastmasters thing was. So I had briefed many people, some fairly high-ranking people, and I thought I was pretty good at presentations. And then I went to the Toastmasters meeting, the Wright Flyers Toastmasters Club at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And I went in there, and an hour later, I came out and I said to myself, wow, I have a lot to learn. And what that really shows is that you've probably heard of something called the curse of knowledge. We believe that we're good at some things that have nothing to do with what we're really good at, like maybe being an attorney or an engineer, that type of thing. And we're confident in that, but we believe that transfers over into giving presentations, and it really doesn't. Now, I'm not saying that some of you are not outstanding presenters, but that gives an indication that you really need to look at what makes up good presentations. So that's what we're going to talk about. So in this age of AI, I went to AI and I asked the question, What are the frustrations that IP attorneys have with delivering presentations? And if you can just put in the chat if you agree with any of these, just put a yes if you agree with any of these. And let's see, I think I can see the chat. So, complexity of the law, audience engagement issues, lack of visual or interactive tools, managing expectations, time constraints, responding to challenging questions. We're going to talk about that. Keeping up with legal updates. I imagine that's probably a big part of your job. And then balancing persuasion with legal accuracy. A lot of times people believe that, and it's not only attorneys, it's almost everyone, believe that if I just say the right thing, then it will engage with people and there will be no problem. And nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the majority of communication is body language and tone of voice. So the pitch of our voice and how that varies. The words are very important too, but not as important as the other two, believe it or not. And if you can think about when you've had a conversation with a friend of yours, and there are different cues that you unconsciously pick up on from that other person that gives you a lot more communication than just the words they're using. So I hope to answer a lot of the frustrations that you may have in this area. Okay, here are some quotes that from some fairly famous business people. Warren Buffett, if you can't communicate, it's like winking at a girl in the dark. Nothing happens. You can have all the brain power in the world, but you have to be able to transmit it. And the transmission is communication. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Sam Walton, communicate everything you can to your associates. The more they know, the more they'll care. Once they care, there's no stopping them. I assume that you all work with paralegals or other administrative people, and just looking at what Sam Walton has there can really come in handy. And then Richard Branson, communication is the most important skill any leader can possess. So if you lead people or if you're an informal leader in your group, communication and presentation skills is pretty darn important. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the fear of public speaking. I'm going to give you some tips on how to reduce that fear. Then we're going to talk about creating a presentation. And then the third bullet there, where everyone usually falls short in, is practicing your presentation. And I'm going to talk about that pretty thoroughly. And then how do you deliver your presentation? I have about not, I think 11 or 12 points that I just want to bring up and on that. Does anybody know, oh, that the fear of public speaking has a name? It's called glossophobia. Does anyone know who said this? According to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. Death is number two. Does that sound right? This means that to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. Does anybody know who said that? And you can open up your mics if you want. Who do you think said that? Come on, somebody take a guess.
Larry David.
Who? Who?
Larry David.
Larry David. Close. Anybody else? Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld said that. Now, obviously, that's from years ago, but it does ring true. So, how can you reduce your fear of public speaking? Well, first of all, realize that the audience is always behind you at the beginning. Okay, you can turn them against you, and there are ways to do that, which I suggest not doing. We'll talk about that. But no one comes to a presentation, including you today. You didn't come to this presentation to see how the speaker can just really do a terrible job, did you? Did anybody give me a no if you didn't come to hope that I would just give a terrible presentation? Give me a no in the chat. Okay. All right. So your audience is with you. Believe that. They're giving up their time, and you've given up your time today. They're giving up probably a lot of things in their lives to come and listen to you speak. So there's a reason that they're here, and you all chose to come here. You're all registrants. Okay, it's not like high school algebra or calculus where you have to go to the class. So there's a reason you wanted to be here. Speaking often gradually desensitizes you to your fear. In fact, any fear. Keep doing what you're fearful of, and you will desensitize yourself. Most people that come to Toastmasters, and that's the speaking group, worldwide speaking group, most of the people that come because they're fearful of speaking. Every Toastmasters meeting, usually 2 meetings a month, everyone in the room, whether there's 5 people in the room or 25 people in the room, everyone gets up to say something. And the reason we do that is because of desensitization. When people get up to talk, if they repeatedly do it, they gradually don't lose their fear, but it lessens the fear quite a lot. So that's really important. Uh, Most of the time, you think the thing you fear will not happen. And the key to that, I'll hit this a little bit later on, though, that you will go through your presentation and you'll say to yourself, well, gosh darn, I wish I had done that, or wish I'd done this, or didn't do this. The audience doesn't know, and the audience doesn't care. In fact, bringing out some of those things, you may have heard somebody say, oh, well, I lost my place. Don't even mention that. Number one, it's a distraction for the audience. And number two, it's just going to make you more fearful. Just go on. I remember my daughter, when she was in grammar school, they had a band, and with all due respect to grammar school bands, they don't always sound the best, but they wore T-shirts that said um, what it was something and play on. Now I can't remember it. Sorry about that. Oh, I shouldn't have said sorry. It was keep playing or keep playing on. Basically, what they're saying is, in other words, don't stop. Just keep going. Okay. So most of the time, the thing you fear will not happen. Becoming familiar where you will deliver your presentation. Now, I'm pretty familiar with my office here where I'm doing the presentation, but that's really important. So if you can actually go to the venue, if it's an in-person venue, go to the in-person place, okay? And if it's a hotel or whatever, go up on the stage, stand by the lectern. Lectern, by the way, is something that stands up to put the notes on. You don't lean on it, by the way, uh, because you cut down on gestures when you do that. And a podium is something that you stand on. But anyway, go and become familiar. Connect up all your electronic equipment if you have slides. See if the mic works. And by the way, there will be people that you hear, and maybe you've heard them already in meetings saying, I don't need a mic. If there's 30 people in the room, you need a mic for 2 reasons. Number one, to get to the people in the back of the room, you'll have to be almost shouting. And number two, if you shout, the people in the front are going to get blasted. And number three, and you see number three figures in heavily into my presentation. We'll go over that in a minute. Uh, and number three, you won't have a voice at the end. So if you want to keep your voice, always have a mic. A lapel mic is the best. Again, this is in person information. Lapel mic is in the best because you can move around. A remote mic is okay, but you do cut down on gestures for whatever hand you're holding the mic. And a wired mic is the least favorite because you only have a certain tether that you can go around. And you need to move around to keep people interested in your presentation in person again. This isn't one that comes through practicing. No answers to every possible question that could be asked on your topic. Now, as IP attorneys, you may have fairly complicated topics, some arcane clauses in the law, so on and so forth. We're going to get to practicing, and I'm going to show you how to know those answers before you get to the presentation. And believe it or not, if you're not a little bit fearful, your presentation will be flat because you'll be so nonchalant about the presentation that you'll almost go into a monotone. So you want to be a little bit fearful. And a way to maybe expend that nervous energy is to move around, use gestures, use your body language, so on and so forth. Okay. Let's see here. Practice, practice, practice. That you'll see that in a number of charts. Any questions before I go on? Okay. If you can put on your videos, please do, because that helps me as a speaker. So, okay, let's move on. So before the presentation, it's pretty simple. It's before the presentation, which is creating and practicing, and then during the presentation. Those are the 3 points here. So before the presentation, you need to know who your audience is. So I've talked to Bill Samuels, about who is in the audience. And I know your IP attorneys and that type of thing, but I can do research on you, that type of thing. And the reason for that is that you want to make sure that what you're saying is relevant to them, number one. Number two is not talking down to them or talking up to them. So you want to make sure that you want to establish your credibility. One of the best ways to establish your credibility is to write your own introduction and have someone else introduce you. So I wrote the introduction that Bill Samuels recited. And the reason for that, the reason I want someone else to recite it is the same reason why on Amazon you look at the reviews, especially if it's a big ticket item. My wife and I bought my son a very expensive, um, what is it called? One of the coffees, dark coffee, espresso coffee. Yeah, espresso machine. And it's fairly expensive. It only does espresso. But we looked at all sorts of reviews, and not only reviews from people, but the reviews from some of the organizations that do reviews of appliances before we decided on that one. That's community. You want to know that someone else has looked at a product. And so Bill is my community now. He recited who I am. I'm not trying to build myself up, but you need to know that the speaker knows what they're talking about. So that introduction did a lot of that. Develop your presentation in this order. Remember in high school composition or high school English? I don't want to bring back any nightmares, but how did they tell you to build a composition? They didn't tell you to build the intro or the conclusion first, because you have no idea what's in the body. So how can you do an inclusion or an introduction, excuse me, and conclusion? So you always do the body first. And I'm going to show you a way to do that. And there's my second practice, practice, practice. Okay. The preparation is the key. Okay, practice, practice, practice. Structure. Now, there are many different ways to structure a presentation. However, a general structure, which is what I'm going to go over now, is pretty much a requirement in each presentation. First, there's an opening. You have a relevant story, quote, statistic. You have to have something to bring in the audience. My attempt at that was when I went into my first Toastmasters meeting. So I told a little story there. What's the purpose of the presentation? And then 3 main points. And I would keep them to 3 if you can. And as I go through here, I'm going to tell you why. Main point and then subpoints of the body. And then the closing, which is a restatement of your 3 main points, a restatement of the presentation purpose, 3 calls to action, then a relevant story, quote, statistic. And you can keep this slide out and make sure that I do all these in this presentation. I think I will. So if you follow this structure, you tell them what the 3 main points here in the opening are. Then you go into the 3 main points in detail. And then you restate the 3 main points. Does anybody think that the audience won't remember what the 3 main points are? They will. Something that I learned in the Air Force, and I think it's an industry too. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. It's something that's been around for a long time, and that makes a big difference. And I'm going to give you a call to action too with some takeaways at the end. Okay, how to create your presentation's body. Now, my assumption is, and tell me whether it's a good or bad assumption, is that when you have to give a presentation, there's a specific topic you need to work on, okay? Or that you're given for the presentation. But if you are not given a topic, assuming that it's something in the legal area, okay, you can use something called mindstorming. And the key here is 1 minute. Take out a blank piece of paper. This is a practical thing. Take out a blank piece of tablet and a legal tablet and put 1 to 20 on the left-hand side, to the left of the red line, whatever. And then in 1 minute, list 20 ideas. And these ideas should be 1 or 2 words. Okay. And the reason that you are limited to 1 minute is that in 1 minute, you can pretty much have a, what do they call that? Well, anyway, you can probably pretty much get down 15, maybe 20 ideas. Okay. Then select one of those ideas. Okay. One of those 20 ideas or 15 ideas, put it on the top of another blank piece of paper. And then in 1 minute, list 20 ideas about that particular subject. Okay. I've seen this work time and time again. I use it myself. Okay. Now, what do you do with all those ideas? Well, then what you do is you put the 20 ideas about your presentation subject on the second piece of paper on a separate post-it note. So 1 idea per note. And take all those notes and put them up on the wall. That's where the term cards on the wall come from. You can also do it in software. You can put 20 squares on a PowerPoint slide and just put the 20 ideas in each one of those. Something magical happens when you can see all the 20 ideas pictorially, not just written on a piece of paper. You start seeing patterns. So this idea up here goes with this idea down there. These 2 ideas over here go with these 3 ideas over here, so on and so forth. Now, if you can get them into 3 groups, that would be best, but 4, maybe 5 groups. Try to get them in there. Some of them you may throw away, okay? Those groups, name those groups. Those groups are your main points, okay? And the ideas under them are your subpoints. And that's how you create the body. Then take all those, and I like bullets. I never read any of my presentations. I always use bullets. And the reason for that is that if I have complete sentences, I have maybe some on here, but if you have complete sentences, you'll start reading them. And when you read, you go into a monotone. It's better to bring your personality out. And that's a good point, just a little segue. Your credibility is never higher than when you are yourself. A lot of people think that giving presentations is a performance, and it is in a sense, but it's a performance of you. And you are the only one that can give that performance. So don't deprive the audience of you, because they've come to see what you think. Okay, any questions so far? Nope. Okay. Now let's talk about the opening and the closing. Remember, there's an opening, a body, and a closing. The opening purposes are, as it says, gain the audience's attention, story, startling statistic, relevant quote, that type of thing. Also prevent what the purpose is of the presentation. And then tell them what you will speak about. Those are the 3 main points. I had 5 main points, but that's okay. 3 to 5 main points. Opening parts, there's an attention step and a presentation roadmap, or what I call the roadmap. Now, the attention step could be stories like I had, could be a quote, statistics, humor, rhetorical questions, or personal experiences. Okay, that could be the attention step. And there are more than this. You're trying to jog the audience into focusing on you. Okay. If I were speaking to a military audience, and this is a true fact, I may tell them that, believe it or not, there were more airmen that were killed in World War II than Marines. That's a true statement. That may jog some of the people in the audience. Oh man, this may find out some other things that I didn't know. Then there's a presentation roadmap. Okay. Can anybody here tell me by a raise of hands would you ever go? Well, let's say this. If you were going from New Jersey or New York, traveling down to Florida, raise your hand if you would have a map or a GPS, right? Just raise your hand if you have that. Okay. Nobody would ever think about just pointing south and then saying, let's see where I'm going. Let's see where it leads us. No. Okay. You want to get around traffic, and certainly 95 in the Eastern Seaboard is traffic central. So you'd have a map. So why not give your audience a map of the journey you're going to take them on? Okay. And that map is simply your your main points. So I told you we're going to talk about fear, we're going to talk about creating and practicing and delivering a presentation. Okay, that's the roadmap. Okay, so you got to give them a roadmap. So many presentations, and I noticed this, I hope this isn't sacrilegious. I I noticed this with the priests at my parish. I mean, they are just like all over the place. Some of them actually read it. It's terrible when they read it. But they may have good things in there, but we're not paying attention because it's so boring. Okay, so the presentation roadmap is really important. Okay, your closing. Any questions on the opening? No. Okay. Um, okay, your closing. I can't see the full chat, so Bill and Charmin, if you can help out with that. Closing purposes. You present a summary of your main points, and actually, you're just explicitly telling them what your main points are. You provide a call to action, and then you deliver what I call a get off the stage step. We're going to talk about these individually. Summary of your main points, make it brief. Make sure you have transitions between your main points in your closing and also in your body. They have to be related to each other. And then finally, above all, in your closing, do not introduce new information. Audiences get really ticked off if you introduce new information. You've had your chance in the body. If you left out something, just leave it out. Okay. And then a call to action that tells your audience how they can implement the information in your presentation. So basically, you don't want an audience member walking to their car and saying, boy, Frank had a great presentation there. But what do I do with this stuff? Well, I'm going to tell you what to do with it at the end here. And an acronym you've probably seen, make the call to action SMART, or SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bounded. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Okay. Practice, practice, practice. This is the third time you've seen this. So this is my process for practicing, and this is what I advise to my clients. Sitting down first, just read it through and see how, and time yourself, see how long it is. Do it standing up. Believe it or not, it's a different feeling when you stand up, and try to use some gestures in there. And the one that really scares people is in front of a mirror. So you can really see what you're actually doing, what your audience is seeing. Okay. Or do you have a tick? Are you going back and forth or side to side? Are you fiddling with something in your hand? So on and so forth. This fourth one has a high payoff in front of a practice audience. Remember, I said one of the things that you should strive for is to, when I was talking about fear, is to know the answer to every question that could be possibly answered. Well, this is the place before a practice audience that you find out what those questions are. And you tell the audience, tell them, I want you to ask any possible question you can think of on this topic. And then have someone in the group actually be scribing those down, be writing those down. So you can take them back to your office and get cogent answers for them. This is very effective in reducing fear, because I remember on the frustrations that IP attorneys have about presentations, it talked about not knowing all the answers. So this is one way to find out all the answers. You may still get one that isn't, And we're going to talk about questions a little bit later, but this cuts down on the ones that you don't know the answer to. And if you don't know the answer to it, to a question from an audience member, just flat out say right away, I don't know the answer to that, but if you give me your email at a break, I will get you an answer within 24 hours. And then, if possible, in the venue room, I talked about that. We had a saying in the Air Force: we train the way we fight, and we fight the way we train. So the way that you practice, in fact, the last practice of your speech is the way you are going to give it in the actual presentation. So if you're not proud of that last practice, then it's time to practice more. Okay. And get comments from your practice audience. What did they like? What do they think you should change? So on and so forth. Okay. The power of three. We talked about this. I alluded to it a little bit earlier. And what is it about three things in a series? Well, your audience cannot remember more than three main points. If you have four or five main points, and God help you if you have seven main points, they're never going to remember it. So if you want your audience to retain what you're speaking on, make sure it's 3 points. The second point here is your audience will tune you out after the third point. And if it's in the case of my priest or my priests, not just one, all of them do it on the pulpit. Uh, if I don't even know what the main points are, then I don't know how to tie things together in my brain to retain them. So it's important that you realize that your audience is going to turn you out after the third point. And then finally, you will find it hard as a speaker to remember more than three main points. So it's also helpful to us. Okay. So during your presentation, okay, I'm going to just put these out in the interest of time here. Okay, all these have to do with your delivery. Remember, you're the message, it's not your slides. People are looking at you, hopefully. And by the way, if you ever need to blank out a slide because your audience is paying too much attention to the slide instead of you, just hit the B key on your keyboard. Whoops, here we go. It blanks out the screen, hit it again, and comes back. Okay. Your credibility, we've also always talked about, or we have talked about that. Remember to write your introduction and give it to somebody else to say. Apology trap. This is the person that gets up there and says, "Oh, I lost my place. Oh, I forgot to include that slide," or any number of other things they're saying that they're considering wrong with their presentation. Well, the bottom line is that your audience doesn't know what's in your presentation. So don't tell them, because when you tell them, you're decreasing your credibility a little bit. And they're thinking to themselves, well, this person hasn't really prepared for this presentation, so why should I listen to them? So you're going to lose audience engagement. There's a lot of problems with the apology trap. Tell stories. There's a reason that theaters, even with all the streaming services we have on our TVs, through internet and that kind of thing, there's a reason that movie theaters are still there, because everybody loves a story and they like it big, so they go to movie theaters. Okay. Everybody likes a story. There's a hero in the story, which is not you, by the way. When you're talking to your client is the hero, and you are the guide that will guide them past their problem. Okay. Gestures are very important. I'm of the Italian heritage, and when my grandmother, who did not speak English, held up her hand like this with a mean face, I knew what it meant. I did something wrong. Okay, so gestures, which is part of body language, and remember, gestures and body language, gestures, body language, and vocal variety are the majority of communication. Okay, eye contact, super important. Remember the last time you talked to someone and they didn't have eye contact with you? Did you think maybe they're not trustworthy, or they're telling me something that's not exactly right, or who knows what else? But you're not trusting the person. Vocal variety, body language, we've already talked about. Very, very important. Pauses. Martin Luther King, in his I Have a Dream speech, used pauses correctly. Remember at the end, he said, I have a dream, pause, that my little children, pause, will grow up, pause, To be judged by the content of their character, pause, rather than the color of their skin. Very powerful. Gives the audience time to process it, gives you time to process it, plus it puts emphasis on that. Avoiding ahs, ums, and repeated words. I have a very fast way to do that. To your practice audience, I want you to give them one of those New Year's Eve clickers and tell them, tell the person that has the clicker, whenever I say an or repeated word, I want you to click that thing. After the second click, after you're embarrassed enough through the first two clicks, you won't want to be embarrassed again. So what you'll do is you'll stop speaking and think about what you want to say and then speak. Humor is very important. It lightens up the audience, but humor should be directed to yourself, self-deprecating humor. Don't don't do humor on at the expense of any person or group. There will be somebody in the audience. Number one, it's not the right thing to do in my mind. And number two, there'll be somebody in the audience that's part of that group. So you don't want to turn the audience against you. Some common delivery errors are, again, the apology trap, odds, ums, and repeated words, going over time, that type of thing. And when things go wrong, now I remember what the T-shirt said in grammar school. My daughter's band, it said, "Stay calm and play on." So I changed that around a little bit, and I said, "Stay calm and speak on." That's the best thing you can do. Now, the Q&A period is basically three kinds of questions. There's relevant questions, there's hostile questions, and then there's irrelevant questions. The relevant questions are the ones you should pay attention to because that has to do with your subject. And if you know the answer, just state the answer and then move on. If you don't know the answer, again, tell the questioner, if you give me your email to break, I will very gladly get you an answer in 24 hours. If they're irrelevant questions, you really need to say very kindly, though, that that's a good question. It's a little bit tangential to our subject. If you see me at the break, I'll gladly talk to you about it. And then the hostile questioner. Sometimes you get this, the heckler. Remember, the audience is with you until you turn them against you. First of all, for the hostile questioner, don't get down to their level and start punching it out with them. Okay. The audience knows that the person is a heckler, but he or she is their heckler. So if you start picking on the heckler, guess what? The audience is going to turn against you. And what happens very magically, since the heckler is wasting your time, but also the audience's time, the audience self-corrects that person. Start saying things like, "Oh, please sit down. You know, you're wrecking it for the rest of us," so on and so forth. So, so those are three cases there. Any questions during your presentation? Now, it's hard to believe, and I find it hard to believe that you can take all this information and instantly be a great speaker. You have to practice, and that's where Toastmasters comes in, and other speaking groups, or speak often, at least twice a month, three times a month, to get you. But you need somebody to evaluate you, and that's where Toastmasters comes in because every speech gets evaluated. Okay, here are some great books that have been helpful to me. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. That goes along with what I said about body language and tone of voice being the major thing here. This is an interesting one, Super Communicator, that I think has relevance. Oh, they all have relevance, but this has special relevance to this particular audience because this has to do with taking complicated information, maybe jargon that you use in your industry, the IP industry, and making it simpler. Everybody's heard of TED Talks, I'm assuming. This is by Carmine Gallo. The nine public talk like TED, the nine public speaking secrets of the world's top minds. This book right here is the original not translation, but the original book that brought up to date for modern language that Dale Carnegie started with when he started his courses in public speaking in 1912 in New York City. So it's a wonderful book. The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs. If you haven't seen the 2005 video, it's on YouTube, of Steve Jobs introducing the iPhone, you have to see it. It's pretty tremendous. And then finally, my book, my favorite book, Just kidding. Speak Well and Prosper, Tips, Tools, and Techniques for Better Presentations. And to the attendees still here, we are going to be giving away one copy of my book, signed book. So let's move on here. Now, just real briefly, I'm going to go into some virtual speaking stuff because I assume that you're doing more virtual speaking. So the first thing is virtual speaking is here to stay. I know during COVID said, oh, I can't wait to get back to, people were saying, I can't wait to get back to in-person speaking. Well, in-person speaking has come back, but virtual speaking is just too darn easy. And you can get people all over the place. You don't have to worry about the size of the room. You don't have to worry about refreshments, all sorts of good things about it. The thing to remember is that public speaking basics still apply. So you need to engage the audience, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that down here. Overemphasize your body language. So make sure your gestures are up here, so on and so forth, and move around. You may even want to stand up and move away from the camera so they can see more of your body, maybe your knees to your head type thing. There are new options. I can instantly share something that I wanted to show the audience here, and a slew of other options. Some in-person things you can do in person, only in person, that cannot be done in the virtual world, and vice versa. So, and audience engagement is harder. Now, some practical tips. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, but you will get a copy of these charts after the meeting. I believe Charmin's going to send them out to all the attendees. So raise your gestures, no lights behind you. When you have a light behind you, you can see mine a little bit. I have a blind behind me, but it's because we're moving. I had to move locations. Lights facing you 45 degrees at 45-degree angles. The reason for that is that it cuts down on shadows. You don't want to have any shadows on your face. Use stable internet. Stand back from the screen. I was talking about that. Get a little more personal. Okay, you've found out a little bit more about my life past the introduction. And the reason for that is that someone in the audience may have something very in common with you. And commonality brings people together. So you're trying to keep that audience engaged. Match the video background to the message. So I have bookshelf behind me. Don't have Mickey Mouse or anything funny that's going to detract from your presentation. Start and finish on time. Exaggerate your vocal pitch. Test the mic and speaker beforehand. Use a good headset if you want to have total quiet. If you're maybe in a place that's a little noisy, if you use a headset, you won't have a problem. You may want to explain the virtual platform features that participants can use. We didn't do that in this case because it's Zoom, but I know in some of the other ones, I've been on WebEx and Google Meet and that type of thing, and I have to have some of the things explained because I don't know how to share or so on and so forth. Use speaker view so you can see who's actually speaking. And then use an up-to-date computer. Look at the camera, not the people, or excuse me, not the screens. Mute the audience. Sometimes I've told you can keep your mics on, and if you have a question, you can ask it. Engage your audience often. Wear appropriate clothes. You can see I have a jacket on with a shirt. I'm not going to wear a t-shirt to a presentation I'm giving. And then I guess ensure your background is appropriate, the same as this one. I got to take one of these off. Okay, some virtual presentation skills books. Virtual Training by Jeb Blount. I've actually met John Chen, Engaging Virtual Meetings. This is a fantastic book. This is not just for meetings. This is for any interaction in the virtual world. Virtual Presentation Mastery, Virtual Presentations Made Simple, 10 Steps to Successful Virtual Presentations. The Exceptional Presenter Goes Virtual. There is a green-covered book called The Exceptional Presenter, which is an excellent book, but now goes virtual. It talks about virtual stuff, so that's pretty neat. Okay, this is my book, Speak Well and Prosper, Tips, Tools, and Techniques for Better Presentations. I'm offering an hour free to anyone that would like to talk to me about presentation skills, the things I went over today, or maybe more things that you're concerned with. That's and it's available through these. Now we're going to have a drawing for a free signed book. I will need to have your address, obviously, to send it to you. So I will stop sharing, Charmin, and then I'll have Charmin share, and then I'll come back sharing. Okay, Charmin, there you go. Okay, what she's done is don't click it yet. Whoop, don't click it yet. You clicked it. That's okay. Um, did you put the sound on when you shared, Charmin?
You have the sound on, but I didn't click it yet.
You do have the sound on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just spin it, please. We have everybody that's here. Just gonna spin it. Oh yeah. I love the sound. Who's gonna win? It's like it's Katie Market. Kurt. Oh no, Erica Cummins. Okay, sorry about that, Katie. Is Erica Cummins here?
Hi.
There she is. Can you put it on your screen, or is that not what you want to do?
Okay.
Yeah, please put on your screen because we got to say congratulations to you.
Okay, give me 1 second.
There she is. Okay,
Hi.
put their hands
Thank
together.
you.
Okay, Erica. I'm going to give you my email, and when you get please send me your address, and you will get a free signed book. Okay?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, I'm going to share again. Thank you, Charmin. That was good. Okay, I'm over here. Share. Okay. And also, you get a free 1 hour free consultation with me. I'm sorry, it says NextGo member. It shouldn't say NextGo member. It should say uh, New York State Bar member. Didn't change that. But that is my Calendly. If you just put that into your browser, you can make a appointment with me. Okay. And if you want to be added to my weekly newsletter, simply send a message to me at Frank at Speak, Lead, and Succeed. And just put IP monthly. I'll know who you are. And when you do schedule the hour, if there's any place in there you can indicate that you came to this meeting or this is the meeting that we met each other in, that would be great. Okay. All right. I'm almost finished here. What we have covered in this presentation, we talked about the fear of public speaking, creating your presentation, practicing, delivering it, and also virtual presentation delivery considerations. Some takeaways. This will be real fast. Okay, learning and applying excellent business presentation skills is vital to your business. Virtual world is here to stay. You got to embrace it, and you have to know how to use it. Some of those books I recommend, I can show you how. Your credibility with your clients and the amount of business they give you is directly related to your business presentation skills. And your presentation skills can be one-on-one too, can be used one-on-one. A call to action, that's Uncle Sam, so you have to do it. Whoops, here we go. Next. Hey, first one, pick 3 things you learned today and make a plan to implement them in the next week. Pay particular attention to openings and closings because people remember beginnings and endings the most. And practice, practice, practice. This is at least the 4th or 5th time I've said it. And Brian Tracy says practice does not make perfect, but it does make permanent. So you want to know what you're permanently going to say in the actual presentation. You only know that from the practice. Okay. Little tidbit on my business, Bartolomeo Consulting International, real quick. I coach clients to reduce their presentation preparatory time by 50%, deliver their presentations effectively, and be completely comfortable at ease. I do key shops, workshops, seminars, webinars, coaching one-on-one, and group coaching. That's my and by the way, if you go to that speakleadandsucceed.com website and click on articles, there's over 300 articles on public speaking, and they're searchable. So you can search on any term. There's my email, and let's see, my email, and that's my Calendly again. That's my phone number. I probably shouldn't get out my phone number, but you guys are okay. I'll take a call from you. I also have a podcast I started last September. I just recorded my 28th podcast today. And let's see here. And I won't go through there, but it's basically talking about public speaking. Okay. All right. It's now time for questions. If you scan that QR code, if you don't mind scanning it and giving me an evaluation of my presentation, I'd really appreciate it. And if any of you want to get together past this presentation, please give me a call. There's information in there on that. So I'm going to just leave that up there, and I'll open up the room to questions. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but any questions anyone has? Any questions in the chat, Bill, maybe? Oh, it's two here. No, that's a yes or no. Two more questions. Are there recommendations for getting off the stage? Uh, Stephanie Draughty, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Are you there, Stephanie? Can you put your video on and maybe your mic, or at least your mic? Hi, Stephanie.
Yes, hi.
Hi, how
Thank
you doing?
you. I,
Good.
I, yeah, I heard you mention it, and then I just wasn't sure if there were any more points you could make on that.
Well, the points are that, first of all, never saying in conclusion. Never say that. That's a beginning speaker's term. So people will know if you've come to a synopsis, an outline of what your talk is, they know you're getting towards the end. Okay. So the next thing is you have to give a story is always the best. Personal stories are always the best. And if you do tell a personal story, and it has to be short, right? But a personal story, act out the story, including how people would talk and how they would move in the story. So you almost become like a movie to people, and people are drawn to that. Okay. So there could be that, and stories. And if you pick any of those books, they'll talk about the ending or the closing. But some of the things, my stories are the best. Then startling statistics, quotes, rhetorical questions. You may just want to leave the audience with a question for them to think about, that type of thing. I hope that kind of answers your question. Have I? Okay, great, great. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I hope to see you on a one-on-one, and I am going to stop sharing. Did everybody get this right here? This QR code? Anybody not get it? Okay, it will be in the presentation when you get the PDF of it, and I'm pretty sure you can. Not I'm sure. I know you can get it then. But yeah, I like that. I'm a Toastmaster, so I crave evaluation. In fact, Ken Blanchard, who's a management expert, said feedback is the breakfast of champions. And I know you all want to be champions, so seek out feedback, whether it's from friend or foe. You can decide on whether you want to take the feedback, but get the feedback. All right. I think that's it. If nobody has any other questions, I'll pass it over to Bill. Bill, you're there? You're there.
Yes.
I'm going to stop sharing, and we're back in the room.
All right. Well, Frank, thanks so much. That was extremely helpful. And I know that I could be using some help going forward. I'll reach out.
Yes, please.
For everybody from the section, just a heads up that we're going to be doing an event like this on a monthly basis. If there are any uh, matters and service providers and issues that you think are important for supporting the IP practice or law practice that you think folks would be interested in hearing about, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'd love to line something up for a future event. And otherwise, we're happy to give everybody their 6 minutes, and we hope that your experience has been a good one. Have a great day.
I just wanted to say thank you to Bill and Charmin and Gina. They have been fabulous. So I appreciate it. You got a great set of people there.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Here. Hope to see you again. Bye-bye.